This is the January 1994 meeting of the Upson County Historical Society. We're having it at Trice Cemetery. We wanted it done professionally, Kim.
I'm here. Where's Thelma?
How do you do? Jimmy Bentley. Nice to see you, Bill.
We just out it.
You know the great man, yeah? First time. Oh my gosh, George, how are you? Glad to see you. I'm doing fine.
We got a beautiful place here.
Well, thank you. I have enjoyed living here. This is very old tree, it's over 100 years old. It was planted by Cousin Jimmy Crawford, who lived here in the last century. And at the reunion, I thank, in my expression of thanks to various people.
Did you get the pretty flowers? That's all right.
Get the whole table.
Oh, it's a good thing we put up so many tables. We didn't have this pretty good last year's covered. Yes, a lot more than you'd guess. I'd say.
Hey, get this also over now. You. Why a head? Bless your heart. I know who it is. I'll put the job in it last I know Mama did. I know it now. We have to go back. I got the Gatesville Road.
Of course, we have so many interesting things tonight, so I won't say move on too fast. But I would like to welcome each of you here tonight, and I think we have a wonderful group in this wonderful setting. So it's just delightful to be able to spend some time with you here tonight, and I think we have a lot to look forward to. And it's just wonderful that Preston and his family is having us tonight for this program. I want to be sure that each of you has signed the guest book over here, and we have membership forms for anyone who is not currently a member and would like to become a member. We encourage you to do so because we would like to see the organization grow and strengthen numbers. So invite all of your friends to join, and that'll make a better future for this organization. One of the first things I would like to do is, we're fortunate tonight to have Beverly Holstun Lynch with us, and her husband, Mike Lynch, is with us also. And she has a little presentation she would like to make to the organization. Beverly? This map of this county, Upson County, there were apparently 2 of these maps. My daddy found one of them and kept it. And as long as I can remember, this map was hung over in my den. And I remember coming home. I've been gone for 30 years now, so I've come home a lot. I remember this hanging over this sofa that my mother always sat in. My father sat in the chair next to it. So this is a special and precious memory for me. And I am so delighted to be able to present it to you. As you know, Daddy loved all of you, those of you that remember him here. He loved you, he loved the county, he loved the people, and he would want you to have it. So thank you for having me and for having Mike, and we'll look at it. For the job that you have done with the Historical Society. So if you would come up. have a plaque here. All of you know how Nolan enjoys writing. And this was a piece of his work that was in the Thomaston Times in September 6, 1993. So, with the assistance of Kenny Coggins, who has this old English typewriter, we have recorded his work here, and we would like to present this to you, Nolan, for all of your, we cannot thank you enough for the time that you give of yourself to be sure that the house is in such wonderful order.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I want to be sure and remind each of you, if some of you missed our meeting last month, that we have elected new officers. And I would like for you to know that, well, I'm remaining president. Jimmy McKinley is vice president. We have corresponding secretary, Martha Bruton. We have recording secretary, Nolan Presley. And we have treasurer in the back, Tom Jackson. So I would like to applaud the others for remaining on and for helping out in the work that needs to be done. Since we have such a special program tonight, I'm not going to dwell on anything. This is not going to be a meeting. This is just more of a social gathering. So, at this point in time, I would like to call Ed Clyburn to bless the food.
Irreplaceable, many photographs, school pictures from marble shooting contest to dedication, graduation, and anything. Speeches and speech material of Mr. Holston's, scrapbooks and other historical books, papers, and information, probably 4 large boxes full. So, this is only a tip of the iceberg. Y'all congratulate Beverly on donating the rest of that to the Historical Society.
Isabel Mackenzie McKimmey, and she's giving this to the Historical Society. If you would like to have a copy, you may go by Coach House Antiques and pick up a copy by making a donation to your favorite charity. Isn't that right?
That's
Where did you find that, Beverly?
Daddy found it, I believe, at the courthouse, down in the basement with a bunch of junk. I think it would have probably gotten thrown out.
Because you're a non-profit organization, I would think that in fact you could.
That's when they found that there were 2 original maps that were done.
My goodness.
And the original, unfortunately, got moved over to in Atlanta.
Is that handmade?
Yeah.
Looks like it.
1824, so I don't reckon Xerox.
I don't think so. That's great. Was that framed in your house?
Pardon?
Was that kept framed in your?
This was kept framed in the den in my house.
Well, that's great.
Here, Betsy, P1, I'm gonna remember that. DAR's a P1 photo.
That's an awfully nice gift.
Can y'all
thank you.
tilt that? No.
Yes, right.
Oh, there, look around.
Yeah, we'll save that for the ride.
Okay.
Could I have your attention, please? We're going to go ahead and get on with the program this afternoon. If you'd like to, just go ahead and finish eating and go back for seconds and desserts and drinks, and we'll just be real casual about this, but we wanted to go ahead and let Preston get started with his portion of the evening. It's kind of funny to be introducing Preston. He is a native Upsonian, about as native as you can possibly get. His education started at Ben Hill Grammar School here, and he graduated from Robert E. Lee High School. He attended Oxford College, now Emory at Oxford, for 2 years. And after that time, he went to do his undergraduate work in political science at the University of Georgia. He received his master's in American history at the University of Georgia, and he also got his education certificate there. He's done postmaster's work at both the University of North Carolina and at Georgia State University. And I think it's very typical of the humble man that Preston is, that He told me that basic information, but I had to do a little bit of digging to find out the real scoop on him. He did not tell me that he graduated Phi Beta Kappa from the University of Georgia, and that he was valedictorian of his graduating class at the University of Georgia. I had to go behind the scenes to find that out. His Army career, he was a veteran of the Korean War. He served 2 years in Japan in the Army Counterintelligence Corps. His career has been a pleasure for Preston. He said that he felt lucky to have known what he wanted to do with his life, and then to have had the good fortune to be able to do that. And how many people in the world can say that? So many in our community and in our state, and indeed around the world, have been blessed by Preston's choice of a profession, which is teaching, because he was a wonderful, wonderful teacher. If you've ever spoken to anyone who enjoyed his classes, they will tell you that he was one of the most exciting influences in their young lives. His off-and-on career spanned 30 years in the classroom. He started teaching in Madison, Georgia, moved on to Yatesville High School, where he taught for 2 years, taught also in England, Air Force military children, and he said that was an exciting time to be in England. That was in the 1960s when the Beatles were in full swing, so he's probably got wonderful stories he could tell us about that. He finished his teaching career in the DeKalb County school system. And another bit of background information that he did not tell me that I found out in my probing is that he was a star teacher on numerous occasions, and that's easy to understand why. He retired early from his teaching career. He was looking about for something to do to alleviate his boredom, and he struck upon the idea, along with his siblings, of the infamous Trice reunion of 1989. And if you were one of the people who were lucky enough to be there, you'll know why I say infamous, because there were over 800 people on this very site. It was just something to see and something to be a part of. I know that everyone who was there that day will be indebted to your family forever for the work that you put into that. The work on that reunion brought Preston back to Upson County and back to this home place here, and he had not intended in his retirement years to come back to Upson County, but working on the reunion stirred up a lot of good memories for him and wonderful feelings, and he decided that he would return here and spend his retirement years here in this house. He came back in the fall of 1990, and we have all been the richer for that decision. Preston's going to speak to us tonight on the history behind Trice Cemetery, where I don't think we could have anyone more qualified to do that. Those of us who are Trice descendants, and I'm one, learn early on to appreciate our family history. When newcomers to Thomaston ask if I'm a native, I like to tell them that we helped run out the original Indians. In all seriousness, though, the Trice family were some of the first settlers on Upson County soil, and those original settlers would be proud to know that their descendants are today very much a force in shaping this community right down to this very day. William and Jane Trice, the original Trice settlers, had 14 children. Preston and his siblings are descended from those original 14 along 4 different lines. You remember those are the days when cousins married cousins. He is twice descended on his mother's side of the family and twice descended on his father's side. So you can see there's hardly anyone more qualified to speak on this cemetery. I want you to give a warm welcome for both our host tonight and our guest speaker, Preston Bentley.
I just told the host that our check is in the mail. Welcome to my home, our family home. Our last meeting, Jimmy and several others were talking about what we might do in case of rain. I said, don't think rain. And we have a beautiful day. I think a lot of people have been thinking positive. William and James Pamplin Trice, the pioneer settlers, came to this area about 1823. This was still part of Pike County then. It became Upson County in 1824. They built a log house, which they added many rooms over a period of years. It was right out there beyond the cemetery, about 300 yards, where Preacher Overstreet, the late Preacher Overstreet, lived. But I learned recently, last few years, that they had another home before that down on James Butler's land. Apparently they were there just a brief time and then built it out here. And James, I was fortunate enough to get James to take me, show me the site. The old well is still there, the hole that was the well. So that's a bit of information that I was completely unaware of for all of my 64 years. The second house out there was still standing in 1958, and it was eventually torn down. It was falling apart, but it was a sturdy home for these people for about 140 years. The oldest known grave in Trice Cemetery is 1837. It's that of William and Jane's third child, Millie Ann Trice Nelson. She died at age 23, a short time after her husband died, and their two children were reared by her parents, who only had 14 children of their own. William and Jane's oldest child, James Trice, more commonly known, more familiar with the name throughout our lifetime as Judge Trice. He commissioned the building of that wall out there. It was in 1857. He rented a slave from another planter. This slave was a skilled rock mason. And I want you to observe when we go out to the cemetery the beauty of that wall, how straight it is. The only flaws in that wall are repairs that were made in modern times. With 3 times in my lifetime, automobiles have run into the wall and had to have it repaired. They don't do work like that man did. They don't do that good of work anymore. It's beautiful. The date of 1857 is carved in the southwest cornerstone you'll see up in the other part of the cemetery. The other part of the cemetery that I mentioned was given in 1904 by John Reeves Roberts. He married the daughter of Millie, the first one buried out there that we know. He married her daughter, and of course she had been raised by her grandparents, William and Jane, and he and his daughter lived in that house later. We knew it as the Roberts house as we were growing up. It was really the William Trice house. My late brother Melvin, who wrote much about that house, referred to it as the Trice Roberts house, which is more appropriate. Roberts gave the land, quote, for the purpose of providing a burial ground for the relatives of James Trice and such others as may be allowed. Almost all of the 264 people who are buried there are either descendants or their mates, their spouses, or 12 slaves who were buried in the southeast corner of this side. They were buried there, and nothing was placed on their grave to mark the grave except for field stones. When I was a child, they were still there, but they were scattered, you know, as people, most of the cemeteries tended it. And when after my younger brother Melvin died in 1967, and James and Claire were down so much, I was teaching and not able to be down as much, but James asked Floyd Brumbelow if he could determine for us the spots of those 12 graves, and he did, and we placed marble markers there. They're small marble stones, no names. We don't know their names. It's one of the tragedies of that time, but we treasure them. Let me see. I'm not looking at my notes. I'm getting behind. At the time of the invasion of the you-know-who, in April 18th, 1865, there were 37 people buried there. 12 of them were slaves. Of the remaining 25, a third were children 5 years of age or under. In fact, of that 25, about 2/3 were under 17 years of age, which says something about the high mortality rate of children in those years, who died things that are no longer a problem for us, as you know. A little background on the Trices. The Trices, Claire knows more about it than anybody alive because she's our family genealogist and a very good one. And I must interrupt my pontification at this point. Claire didn't want me to thank her, but she's been down here with me this week, and she's the best sister you can ever have. And my good buddy, she made a pretty flower arrangement. She was shooting me about, and more specific about all the good things she's done for me. The Trices are believed to have come from eastern England, St. Ives, near Cambridge. Beverly, you and I were just talking about both living in that general area. St. Ives is not too far from Cambridge. And I say they're believed to come from there because there's a missing link. We haven't quite connected. Christine, I know, and some of our others besides me have visited the church where they worship. It's the same church where Oliver Cromwell worshiped. You may take that as good or bad. I've never cared for Cromwell too much myself. The earliest Trice we know of in the New World he was granted land in New Kent County, Virginia in 1673. He himself was born, I think, in 1640. Our William Trice, pioneer who came here, his grandfather, John, came through North Carolina and then on into eastern Georgia, where he settled along the Oconee River, and Melvin found information, my late brother Melvin found information, where he petitioned the government for help due to raids by hostile Creek Indians, and I think about $5,000 or something he got from the government eventually, which is quite a lot of money in that day. It is for retired school teachers today. The grandson, the William, who came here, he continued the westward movement. You know, that's all part of it, from Virginia down to North Carolina to East Georgia, and then over here. He came here, as I said, about 1823, which was just shortly after the Creek Indians had ceded this land in the Treaty of Indian Springs, you know, all the land out to the river, I believe. William married Jane Tamplin in 1809 when he was 19 and she was 15. She had the first of their 14 children when she was 17, no twins. 14 children in 24 years, but that record was to be topped by their
We'll have everyone gathered about. Preston, when we were thinking of some way to show our appreciation for you serving as our host this evening, we just really had to spend a lot of time scratching our heads, but I think we've come up with something that hopefully you'll like. We visited the cemetery recently and discovered that we don't have anywhere to sit over there. So the Upson Historical Society, as a thank you for this beautiful, beautiful evening, this is a lovely concrete bench that you can, when you go over there to sit in the cemetery now, you'll have somewhere to sit other than the tombstones. We hope you enjoy it, and thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank all of you. Thank you.
And Kay, I think you wanted to. Did you
Really,
want to
no.
close it? Okay.
I think
all
it's-
right. We'll just go on over to the cemetery now.
Patty Oxford, who had the interview in the paper, her grave is right over here. Born in 1853, died in 1945. I was 15, but I remembered her from my young gift. We had the country store here, you know, and Mama would fix a little box of peppermint candy, a pretty handkerchief, and some snuff. She liked her snuff. But she told stories, and there are so many of them. When the Northern Army came through here, and her experience, a little of it is related in this interview. But she was a tiny little lady, frail, in the hospital bed there all the years that I knew her. And the one thing I want to share with you, because it's a very emotional thing for me. Stones. And like these here, and of course the ground is not even in a lot of places either. Oh, that's right. I meant to introduce my nephew, Jim, and my brother. Most work on his master's in environmental law. Class says that Jim is going to save us. Jim and I, each the second child and second son, we have that bond, and we talk about it so often, how rough it is to be the second child. Actually, Trice, the pioneer. William was born July the 20th, 1789, the year that George Washington first became president, and 6 days after the storming of the Bastille. Once we were, James and Claire and their families and I were sitting around talking, that if you could talk to any one of your ancestors, who would it be? And James and Claire immediately said, William Trice. And I said, I cannot accept just one. I need to talk to several, not just one. But when I was reading Aunt Mary Oxford's article, late one night before the reunion, and I was my potato flat and couldn't sleep, and I was so excited I got up and got out some of my old files and was reading the interview from Aunt Maddie. Can y'all hear me all right?
Oh, yeah.
And she mentioned that the day before the invasion, they were all here for the burial of a little cousin, I believe, or a little kinsman. And I said, I must find that grave. I had my records of the Trice Cemetery. I maintained this, I raised the name and everything, and I have all the records. And so when I came back down here, I almost ran to the cemetery, and this is the grave. And I stood here with goosebumps, thinking of those legendary figures about whom I heard so much as a child, how they all stood here right where we're standing on the day before their lives changed forever. Can you imagine what a dramatic change, perhaps the most dramatic thing that ever happened in the Trice family history, certainly in the New World. We walk up here and I'll show you Millie's grave. The oldest grave is this one. We know this is Millie's grave, and as you see, it's getting very old. And before the big reunion, Lillian and Lucille and Dot, my good Nelson cousins, they and their family thought that they said they would like to put a new marker on here because it's the oldest known grave, and we believe that's the grave of her husband. That little rock there, the little fieldstone, has always been there as long as I can remember. We've done it before, she did. It seems logical. And there is no record in our Trice Cemetery book, our history, a cemetery book, you know what I'm talking about, the one we sell. There's no record of his being buried elsewhere. So I don't know, but they provided those, and we're very grateful. Of special interest to my family and me is the grave of my brother, of course my parents, but I told Bobby and several others I'm not going to try not to make this too personal a tour, but I must show you Melvin's grave and tell you a bit about it. He was a special man. He died at age 30 in a fire in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where he was teaching in Franklin Marshall College. And Melvin was brilliant. He studied a year in France and on the Fulbright Fellowship, and he had written so much about this place and the old Trice Roberts house out here, which was his heart. Beautiful, beautiful thing. And so when he died, we did this special thing for Melvin. One of the poems which we found, I think, I was still in England. I came back for the time of his death, but Claire and James and the rest of the family came upon what I think was a beautiful idea. And I think they decided, and then it was confirmed perhaps by Melvin's poem. The last part of this poem, bury me not when I'm dead under the smothering earth, it goes on, that's actually the first part. Bury me, he said, concluded, bury me under a blanket warm of golden autumn leaves. On an ancient stone carve a lonesome name, Bentley, Melvin Reeves. And so that's about what we did. A dear friend and a noted sculptor, Julian Harris, Georgia Tech, he's dead now, but he did this bas-relief of Melvin. He read Melvin's poems, he used several pictures. This one, this was taken basically from a picture I took of Melvin on the bridge of the River Seine with Notre Dame Cathedral in the background. The summer I visited him over there after he had completed his Fulbright studies. But he was very special. Julian did this. Julian, you may remember, did a lot of sculpture in Atlanta. I don't think it's there still, but it's Lenox Square, the Uncle Remus characters. Some of you will remember them probably. Melvin was doing his dissertation on some aspects of the writings of Marcel Proust, and he had done his master's on another aspect of Proust's work. And Claire, I correct that you or Gwen found in the margin of one of Melvin's books this quotation, paraphrase, the last one, some portion of us is not under the dominion of death. I like that. The base stones of where the pine grove is now, at least one of the others is from a 4-H Club pool, rocks sitting around a 4-H Club pool Melvin made with four-leaf clover pool. Claire has planted the sedum all about here, and the wall, it's she and I together has continued it over 2 walls. It's very hardy stuff. It survives droughts, the worst drought. But I wanted you to meet Melvin. He's one of the best. My mother and father are buried here, and I shall be buried here. The grave here interested me, little Henry Poole. Now we don't know, Cliff, but look, he was a Confederate veteran, died in Savannah as a Confederate veteran at age 16. Obviously of some illness. This is my great-grandfather, my great-grandfather Bentley and his wife. He came home, walked home from Appomattox and settled in western Upson, out what we call the mountains. Rocky soil, pitiful land. Married Laura Harrison, whose father was overseer for Judge Trice, the planter who lived around here. Anyway, in 10 years, they had 6 children. He cut his side while clearing new ground and died of enlargement of the spleen, leaving his widow with 6 children under 9 years of age. The youngest 3 were ages 1, 2, and 3, and rough time. This is the grave of the lady who gave us, from whom we got the Trice pot, Frances Ann Trice, who married Obadiah Moore. Don't you love those names? Obadiah. Down here is the grave, the second child of William and Jane. Her name was Mourning, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G.
Oh, no.
Can you imagine doing that to a little girl? Mourning. Her epitaph is one I want to share with you. You hold that for me, I want to get that card out. You can't read these things very well on the graves, the old ones particularly, and I jotted down several epitaphs that were special. For Mourning Trice Matthews, who lived from 1812 to 1879, thou mouldering seat of disease and pain, adieu, thy dissolving abode, but I shall behold and embrace thee again, a beautiful city of God. And this one of little Susie Andrews, who died at 11 months and 11 days after she was born. Kindred, when you for worship meet, keep sacred Sister Susie's seat, while slumbering here her body frail, her spirit rest within the veil. And Mary Jane Nelson Roberts, the one whose husband gave the additional land out here at the cemetery, in the storm fencing. Hope was saying the other day, she and her father had often wished that we could build a stone wall around it too. I don't think we could ever find anyone to do the same quality of work, but that would be wonderful if several of us win a lottery or something. Mary Jane Nelson Roberts, I mark the spot where husband wept for her who sleeps as Jesus slept. Her hope in him as oft expressed, he took her safely home to rest. Her anxious children watched her bed, and many tears for her they shed. But all in vain they could not save. This is that precious mother's grave. And this last one is one that's always been a favorite of mine. I thought it most unique and original until I saw it on a grave in a cemetery in England. But anyway, this is John W. Abercrombie. My mother was an Abercrombie and a descendant of the Trice 2 line. This young fellow, John W. Abercrombie, died at age 22. My dear young friends, as you pass by, as you are now, so once was I. As I am now, soon you must be. Prepare for death and follow me.
I've seen that before.
Yes, I think they must have. I think they must have had catalogs that you could. by each of those marriages. I think the last child, he was 60-something when the child was born.
We told you weren't old enough yet, Preston.
This is one of my great-great-grandmothers, one of the four from whom I descend. I have lived here and loved this place all of my life, and I feel so lucky to live here, to have all of them here. You know, I can come out here and hug them. And I have a picture in my mind of each of these ancestors and ancestresses, probably very different. In fact, Cousin Francis Robert gave James a picture, two pictures, one of John R. Roberts and one of his wife. And she looked entirely different from the pictures in my mind. She was much more beautiful in my mind. But this is Elizabeth Jane Trice, married Abercrombie, and after she died, I think 38 years, he married her niece. That often happened, you know. They married soon, too. You know, they didn't wait long. They needed help with the children. But the niece he married to just become a widow. That back over there, Claire pointed this out to me. This, what's her name? Frances Ann was Claire, who died, whose husband died. She was just turned 15 when she married, and before she was 16, her husband died, and she had a baby. Talking about stress points. But she was Edmund J. Cooper over there. We don't know much about him. Over here is another one of our ancestors in the Washington Monument. Mary Ann Trice, who married John Jackson Moore. And Neil, we might be kin. No, actually, that was his second wife, Laura Hightower Stevens. He had children by both wives. Unfortunately, this one is cracking, and I don't know what could be done about it. My mother told me as many stories as my father about her side of the family, particularly. Susan Ann up here, Susan Ann Moore was a child of this union, and she married my Confederate ancestor, Jason Reeves. But the sad story of Susan was she was a very large woman, and one night, and the baby was sleeping in the bed with her, and one night she rolled over and the arm fell over the face of the baby. Can you imagine living with that? We ought to turn it around somewhere. Y'all are facing in the sun. Maybe if I walk down this way, and y'all can look down here. Oh, I haven't told them about Judge Trice. Thank you, Claire. This was James Trice that I was talking so much about. I was about to walk back to his grave. That's not the original headstone. The original one was knocked over and broken by a wonderful black man who took care of the cemetery. I always thought there was a little irony there. James Trice was one of the largest slave owners in the county, and later it was not intentional, no, but it was broken. He replaced that, and we have the original in our house preserved. You see, he lists each of his wives, the dates he married them, and read the epitaph. In the resurrection, they neither marry nor given in marriage, for as the angels of God in heaven.
So he wasn't going to have to worry in heaven, was he?
But, well, there's just so many stories about him, and the excitement. I was a little boy hearing those stories, and you know, we weren't that far removed from the Civil War in the 1930s. There were still veterans around. One of whom was my great-grandfather, Jason, down here. I don't know enough stories about all the people out here, but the ones I know, of course, are the ones of my ancestors. And I don't mean to be slighting the ancestors of any other Trice descendants out here, but these are the ones I know. Right down here by Kim is the grave of my mother's mother, right here, Mary Reeves. I just straightened that one. It was leaning dangerously. She died at age, I think, about 40, and she had 10 children. and her father, Jason Reeves, who was captured at Spotsylvania Courthouse during the Civil War. I've been there and seen the bloody angle, the spot where he was captured and wounded. And a nurse, a northern lady, talked him into, Sarah, my cousin from Macon, told me this story, that a nurse probably saved his life because she urged him not to let the doctors know that he was having trouble with that leg. You know what they did for leg injuries or arm injuries. Never forget Scarlett in the movie, of course. Grandpa Jason walked home from prison, Elmira, New York, which was not as bad as Andersonville, but it was one of the worst northern prisons. He walked home. When he came home, they said it was just a bunch of rags and bones. And no one recognized him as he walked down the road, except his old faithful dog. You know, the stories of dogs and the loyalty of the dog. My great-grandfather, Bill Abercrombie, Confederate veteran here, Sarah's mother, my Aunt Petty, told me and James to me this once when she was the last years of her life in the nursing home. Grandpa Bill was charging in battle alongside his brother. His brother was hit and fell, and Bill knelt to see about him, and the officer told him to charge on, and so he never saw his brother again. And Aunt Petty was not an emotional person, but she choked up as she told that story. And of course she knew Grandpa Bill, who died in 1923. Sarah, you were too young, right? I realized I was about to make a faux pas. His wife was, he married twice, he outlived the first wife, and Mama always referred to Grandpa Bill and Grandma Bill. They called his wife Grandma Bill, not the real name. This is the grave of, actually a memorial mark of Benjamin Trice, Neil's uncle, and my childhood hero. He saved me from drowning when I was a little boy, and he became a superhero at that point. Now this is his grave in Normandy. He died at age 21. Battle of Saint-Lô, the history buffs will know that big breakthrough that Patton's tank corps made and swept on to Paris. They'd been bottled up there on the Normandy Peninsula for almost 2 months. Benjamin was in a tank and was killed, and it was a great loss. He was a sweet person, and men don't like to be called sweet, but Benjamin was sweet. Good human being. That's right, Aunt Moselle Trice, some of you know, out at the nursing home at Riverside. That's Aunt Moselle, one of the wittiest, cutest little ladies I've ever seen. In her 80s, I have to tell this story, in her 80s, her husband had been dead a year or two, and she was rushing around the courthouse square, and her nephew, Uncle Jack, Aunt Bentley's husband, said, "Hey, Moselle, where are you going in such a hurry?" She said, "Honey, I'm going to the doctor." That's the way she talked. And he said, "Hey, Moselle, you sick?" She said, "No, honey, I think I'm pregnant." She was such a wit. Yeah, Paul.
Footnote to this.
Yes, please. Paul.
On Benjamin here, his brother Virgil told me that was the third tank that was shot out from under him in that battle. And he was the third tank. So can you imagine that?
He was 21, as I said. August the 1st, I'll never forget that day. My cousin Sarah, I mentioned, who's down here in the red vest, her husband was killed in the Philippines, and he's buried there. Of course, you know, they could have had brought home, but they chose not to bring them home. And Sarah and her son, who was born, who never saw his father. His father went overseas while Sarah was pregnant, and then he never saw it. He and Sarah have been to the Philippines and found the grave. We have a lot of heroes out here. And we have a lot of skeletons in our closet, but I don't think I'm going to tell you those stories.
No,
Now-
just tell the good things.
I want to tell you something special here. Christine Starling, Christine and my father were first cousins. She was much, much, much younger. But Christine's mother and father and brother are buried here.
And that's where I'm going to be.
I'm glad, Christine. I'm glad. Christine's father, Uncle Zach, her mother, Aunt Perla, and her brother, Zach Jr. Christine, correct me, stop me if I got any of the facts wrong. But Zach was working with his brother Reginald, and it's at night, was it, when
He was a manager of Sinclair in Macon.
manager of Sinclair in Macon, and you know Reginald was Mr. Sinclair in Macon, and Zach was murdered, held up and murdered, and they had the trial. I remember going to this funeral, Christine, at your parents' home, 1939. They convicted a black man for the murder, and his brother, Christine's brother Reginald, I'm not sure I have just precise details correctly, but he felt that there was some reasonable doubt, and he asked that the sentence be commuted to life instead of death. Which was, I remember reading an article, I was 9 years old, but I remember the article, the editorial, called this an act of Christian charity. Certainly it was. Particularly at that time in our history, there were not many people who would do that for a black man, you know. You know how things were, those of you who lived then. But Zach Jr., a real tragedy. There are other stories out here as my family. Let's walk out there, but I'm not going to. I think we'll end the tour because you're probably getting tired. Let's walk over here, and because several who are with us have family members out here, close family members. This gate, of course, was right out the road from William Trice's house. And look at these big rocks. Look how straight that wall is. And if any of you have a camera, I want to take a picture. The cornerstone right down there is the date 1857 when the cemetery wall was built.
Do you have to be of Trice descent to be buried in?
Well, basically, yes. There's no one who owns it except all the thousands of descendants, but that's been the policy through the years. A descendant or a spouse, of course, and there was some. In fact, I have been told a story of a little child being buried right over there by the historical marker in the dead of night and secretly. And we don't know the story. We never knew who it was. I never knew. But right over there, close to the marker. Thank all of you who are responsible for that seat over there. I just looked at it again. Hope's grandparents, Paul's mother and father are buried here, and then their parents, right? Miss Naomi, we always call her, should call her cousin Naomi, or cousin Naomi, we always say. She was a sister, a half-sister actually, of James Butts, whom I saw arriving late. James, like Charles Courage and several others, with Lions Club Fish Friday night, I believe. That's why they couldn't come. My Aunt Mary, my grandmother, Minnie Trice, who married the Bentley, had a sister named Mary and a sister named Susie, who's Faye Pittman's grandmother, buried right over there. But Aunt Mary, she came closer to being Aunt Pitty Pat than the movie Aunt Kitty Pat. She was such a sight. And one of my favorite stories is they told, this is Aunt Mary down here, actually that's her son, it's another Aunt Mary right here. She was always inclined to faint, or thinking she was going to faint. And she would, the story is that she ran out to the edge of the field one day in a hot, steamy day and, Papa, come to this house right this minute. I think I'm going to faint. And he said, well, just go in there and stand by the bed and faint on the bed, and I'll be up there as soon as I finish this row. At which point she allegedly went tearing off to the field to really give him what for. So much for the fainting. She was a good lady. And I meant to point out over there, as I said, the McKinley lot. Faye Pittman, who's one of our members, her grandparents and her father are buried there, and Faye and her brother Buddy will be buried there. Franklin, we knew him as Franklin when we were going up Paul Sullivan. We'll have this lot right up here, which is staked off, and then Virgil, Franklin's daughter married Virgil Trice's son, Neil, and they're here. They'll have a lot right over here. The Sarah Kersey, who is one of our new members and a lady, a real lady. This is her parents and her brother and his wife right here. Do any of y'all remember, I'm sure some of you remember Ophelia Trice, who was here? I had a crush on Ophelia when I was a little boy. She was older, and I told her I thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world next to Lana Turner. So we corresponded when I visited them last fall, and she often signs her letters, Lana. But Ophelia's parents, oh, did she? Ophelia's mother and father and her brother Robert are buried in Thomaston, in the South View, I believe. But she put this memorial marker here for them. She loves this cemetery. Over here, as we can conclude with this is my family's lot, the Bentley's lot, that is. And you may wonder why my father and why we're not out here. But Melvin, who loved that cemetery so much, wanted to be buried within the walls of the old cemetery, and we did. And with Eddie's parents and all of his brothers and sisters who have passed on are buried here. And all of you, well, I would think that everybody here would surely know Diane Perdue. She's buried here. And I have one aunt who's still living. She's here tonight from Manchester, my Aunt Louise Buchanan. And I have two aunts-in-law in that generation. Miss Gerald Passler's funeral, Mac Dallas said, Preston, you and I are getting to be the older generation. Yeah, I think so. I thank you so much for your being so attentive. As you might have gathered, I love this place, and I love for other people to appreciate it. And
we appreciate you keeping it up.
That's the joy to me. We decorated last Christmas. Faye was able to help me the year before last, but this year she was tied up in some other things. But every year we increase the number. We have been able to increase the number of sprays and wreaths that we make with very special ones for the gates. And then we've come out at Christmas and see it. It's pretty. I ordinarily don't decorate my house because I spend Christmas in Atlanta, with my family. My brother and his wife and children, and Claire and Chris and their boys. And so instead of decorating the house, I decorate the cemetery, and it's been fun. I got plenty of holly, plenty of cedar, and plenty of unfortunately, plenty of red ribbons from funerals that have happened since I've been down here. 5. Well, thank you so much, and please come back under the tree and visit with us some more, and we'll talk about living folks.
Well, we appreciate you very much.
Thank you. What class? Christine has a pair of glasses that someone who